Smoke filled the sky. Explosions shook the ground as fire rained from above. The battlefield was silent, now silent, in the worst way. Bodies lay scattered across the dirt, and machines burned like dying beasts among the ruins. A young human soldier, barely 18, tried to move. His name was Eli. He was trapped under a piece of metal from his own transport ship. His left leg was crushed, bleeding badly. His cums were dead. His squad was gone, and help wasn't coming. The cold wind bit into his skin as ash fell like snow. He gritted his teeth and pushed with all his strength, but the wreckage didn't move. Pain shot through his body and he screamed. The sound, swallowed by the smoke, he blinked, trying to stay awake. The battlefield around him had gone quiet again. Only the faint sound of crackling fires and distant rumbling could be heard. He looked up at the ruined sky and whispered, "Not like this." He didn't want to die here alone, forgotten. Then he heard something. Heavy footsteps, slow but steady. Echoed through the debris. Eli froze, panic gripping his chest. It wasn't human, he could tell. No human foot made that kind of sound, deep and thunderous. A shadow moved through the smoke, big. Taller than any soldier he had seen before. He reached for his sidearm, fingers trembling. The shadow came closer. Towering figure emerged, 9 feet tall, skin pale and faintly glowing. Eyes golden, not cruel, but ancient and female. Eli's hand slipped off his weapon. He was too weak to fight anyway. If this was death, he was too tired to care. But instead of striking him, the creature knelt down, her massive hands gently lifted the wreckage off his leg as if it were paper. Eli gasped, blood running freely. The alien looked at his leg and made a soft, strange sound, something between a hum and a sigh. She took a knee beside him, one hand behind his back, the other cradling his head. A small one, she said in broken English. No fear. He didn't know how to react. His body wanted to fight or run, but her voice was calming and warm. He looked up into her glowing eyes and saw no anger, no hunger, just care, she rapped. Him in a thick, bio-woven cloth that seemed to grow from her own skin. It was warm, too warm, like stepping into a sunbeam. Then she stood up and lifted him in her arms like a child. Eli could barely believe it. She was holding him like a mother would a baby, a human soldier held in the arms of an alien giantess. He tried to speak, but no words came out. The pain and shock were too much. His eyes fluttered as she began to walk away from the battlefield, deeper into the alien wilds. Each step made the ground tremble, but her grip never loosened. She held him close to her chest, shielding him from smoke and wind, and with each step, Eli's fear began to fade. His last memory before passing out was her voice, soft and low, singing a lullaby in a language he didn't understand, but it sounded like peace. It sounded like home. Eli opened his eyes to a soft glow. The pain in his leg was gone, and warm air filled his lungs. For a moment, he thought he was dead, but then he felt it, the rise and fall of breath. The softness beneath him. He wasn't lying on stone or steel. He was resting on something alive. The walls around him pulsed faintly with blue light, strange. Vines climbed the walls like veins, glowing and warm. The air smelled of wild honey and something sweet he couldn't name. It was unlike any hospital, any med bay, any battlefield tent, it felt like. A womb, safe and strange. He tried to sit up, and a gentle hand pushed him back down. Large fingers, warm and padded. She was there again, the alien woman, 9 feet tall. With long limbs and glowing eyes that watched him calmly, her voice came out softly, still weak. Rest more. Eli's breath caught in his throat. He remembered the battlefield, the pain, the shadow. You saved me, he whispered. She nodded slowly. You, child, no leave behind. He looked at her. Ellie looked. She wasn't like the others he had seen in war briefings. No jagged armor, no cruel teeth, no weapons, just a long flowing body wrapped in natural biofibers. A body built not for killing but for holding, carrying, cradling this place, he asked, eyes scanning the room. Where am I? She tapped her chest proudly. My nest. He stared at the living walls, the ceiling that breathed like lungs. Nest, not cell, not cage, something else, a home. The bed pulsed gently beneath him, adjusting to his body, his leg once broken. And bleeding was wrapped in thick mossy material glowing with heat. Pain was dull now, distant. Whatever she had done, it worked. Why me? He asked suddenly. She tilted her head, confused. Why did you save me? She took a breath and touched her own chest. My small, lost in last war? Then she pointed to him. You look same, feel same. I remember. A quiet moment passed. Eli didn't know what to say. This alien woman had taken him in not as an enemy, but as a child. He wasn't a prisoner. He was someone she wanted to protect. Do you have a name? He asked gently. She blinked, then said Juria. The name rolled like thunder and honey. Eli nodded. I'm Eli, she smiled, a wide, strange expression with teeth that could frighten. But her eyes were kind. Juria stood and walked toward a strange pod that opened like a flower. She pulled out a plate with something soft and pink, steaming lightly. Eat, she said. Offering it, he hesitated, sniffed it sweet and earthy. He took a bite, and his eyes widened. It tasted like warm bread and honey mixed with roasted fruit. I could get used to this, he muttered, taking more. Juria sat across from him. Humming a low song, it made the nest vibrate gently, as if responding to her mood. He leaned back, tired but safe, for the first time in weeks. Thank you, Big Mom, he said, half joking. She raised a brow. Big. Mom. He laughed softly. Yeah, you're like a really tall mom. She touched her heart and nodded. Then I be. You're Big Mom? They both laughed. Sound that somehow made the glowing lights dance across the walls. But peace didn't last long. Suddenly, a shrill tone echoed through the nest high, and sharp Juria stood up fast. Face serious, Eli sat up, alarmed. What is it? She said just one word, hunters. She opened the wall with a motion of her hand, revealing a hidden chamber. Hide, she ordered, placing a hand on his shoulder. But I can help, Eli protested. No, she said firmly, her voice deeper now. You stay safe. I handle. She gave him one last look before sealing the chamber. Eli crouched in the darkness, breath shaking, through a crack. He watched her figure move like a guardian made of stone and love. Big Mom wasn't. Just a gentle giant, she was ready to protect her nest with her life if needed. Inside the small, hidden chamber, Eli crouched in silence. The walls were soft and warm. But his heart pounded like a drum. Outside he heard footsteps, heavy, sharp. Nothing like Juria's gentle stride. Voices followed, deep and hissing, speaking. A language he didn't understand. But he didn't need translation to feel the threat in their tone. He pressed his eye to a small crack in the wall. He saw them, 3 alien figures, nothing like Juria. They were armored head to toe in dark. Jagged plating, eyes glowing red, weapons humming with heat. Their presence made the nest tremble not from weight, but from hatred. Juria stood tall in front of them, her arms wide, her voice calm. No harm, she said in their tongue. This nest is mine, but the lead hunters sneered. We scanned human blood here. Eli felt cold all over. They were looking for him. Somehow they had tracked him here, maybe by his suit, maybe by scent. And they would kill to find him, one of. The hunter stepped closer to Juria. You protect the enemy? He growled. You disgrace our kind. Juria did not move. This one is wounded. Helpless, she replied. I offer no threat. The hunter struck her across the face. Lee gasped quietly, his fists clenched, but Juria didn't fight back. She stood still, her golden eyes steady. He is only a boy, she said, her voice shaking. He has no war in his heart. The hunters looked around, scanning, sniffing. They were getting closer to the chamber. Eli reached for a sharp piece of metal beside him, broken from one of Juria's tools. If they opened the wall, he would fight. Even if it meant dying, he wouldn't let her suffer alone. But then, without warning, one of the hunters made a mistake. He touched a sacred part of the nest. pulsing pod near the core. Juria's face changed. The nest responded, lights flashing red, walls shifting. Juria let out a sound, not a scream, not a shout. It was something deeper, something old. A protective roar that echoed through the chamber like thunder before the hunters could react. She struck, with one swing of her massive arm. She threw the first hunter into the wall. The second fired his weapon. But the biowalls absorbed the blast. Juria moved fast, too fast for her size. She grappled the attacker, twisting his weapon from his hands and slamming him to the floor. The third tried to escape, but the nest itself betrayed him, closing. Off the exit, he turned to fight, but Juria was already upon him. Her fists were not like a warrior's, they were like a mother's rage. Protective, unstoppable. When it was over, the chamber was silent again, the nest dimmed to a soft yellow. Juria fell to her knees, her shoulder bleeding a thick blue glow. She breathed heavily, hand shaking. Eli pushed the door open and rushed to her side. "No," she said, trying to smile. "You stay safe." "I can't just hide while you bleed," he said, voice breaking. He tore strips from his shirt and began wrapping her wound. She watched him, eyes soft. "You brave." "A small soldier," she whispered. He tied the final knot and looked up at her. "I'm not just some helpless child," he said. "You saved me, now I save you." For a long moment, they sat in silence. Juria leaned her head against the wall. Letting the pain fade, Eli rested beside her, listening to the nest breathe. It was alive, like her, and it had protected him too, not just with walls but with love. After a while, she spoke. "They will come again, I know," he said. She looked at him and asked, "You wish to go home?" He thought for a second, then shook his head. "Right now." "I think this is home," she smiled, the corners of her mouth lifting gently. Then her hand reached out, big and warm, and ruffled his messy hair. "Then I protect you," she said. "No," he answered with a grin. "We protect each other." Asterisk sunlight filtered through the breathing walls of the nest. Eli sat cross-legged near the glowing moss, carefully carving something with a sharpened stone. It had been days since the attack, since Juria fought off the hunters. Since Eli had stopped feeling like a helpless soldier and started feeling like someone again. Juria moved quietly behind him, planting soft spores in a round pod. Her movements were slow but graceful. She still wore the bruises from the fight, blue and silver marks across her pale skin. But she never complained, not once. "Big Mom," Eli said. Holding up the carving, it was rough, uneven, but clearly shaped like a small bird. Juria tilted her head, confused. "Sky Singer," he explained. Pointing upward, "We have them on Earth." Juria took the carving gently in her hand, studying. "It like it was treasure pretty," she said. "You make with pain hand," he nodded. Holding up his bandaged fingers, "Worth it," he smiled. Each day they worked together. She taught him how to grow food inside the living walls by humming to the seed pods and feeding them warmth from glowing stones. He taught her how to repair broken tech using human tools. Sometimes they failed and laughed. Sometimes they made something new, something better. Juria showed him her people's ways. She used no machines, only nature. The walls of the nest responded to song and touch. Eli couldn't believe how alive everything felt. He asked her once, "Is the nest a creature?" She replied, "No. It is many creatures living together." Like family, he never forgot that. Family, something he hadn't felt in so long. War had taken that from him. But here, inside this alien home, it was returning. At night they shared stories. Juria spoke slowly, words broken but full of meaning. She told him about her child, her real child. A daughter with soft gray skin and violet eyes, taken during the first invasion. She never found her again. Eli sat quietly, listening to the grief in Juria's voice. "I couldn't protect her," she said, pressing her hand to her chest. "That's why you protect me," Eli whispered. Juria nodded. A single tear glowing on her cheek. Eli didn't speak for a while. Then he said something he hadn't said in years. "I had a little brother." Juria looked at him. "Raiders took him when I was 12. I was supposed to be watching him." His voice cracked. but I got distracted." They sat in silence again, grief quietly shared between them, two broken hearts learning to beat again. Not through war, but through care, through rebuilding. 1. Juria gave him a small, wrapped bundle. Inside was a long scarf made from woven plant fibers, dyed blue and gold. Eli looked confused. She smiled and said, "Gift." "For becoming? Becoming what?" He asked. "Becoming strong," she answered. "Not with fists, but with heart." He wrapped the scarf around his neck and wore it proudly in return. He gifted her a bracelet he made from old tech wires and bone. It was ugly, messy, and far too small for her wrist, but she wore it like it was royal treasure. They grew closer, teacher and student, protector and survivor, but more than anything, they became something rare in a world torn by war. They became family, but peace, as always, was fragile one morning. Juria touched the nest's core and frowned. The warm blue light was fading. "The heart is tired," she said. "What does that mean?" Eli asked, worry rising. She looked at him then. "At the walls, this place will die soon." Eli stood. "Can we fix it?" Juria shook her head slowly. "Too old. Too many wounds." He clenched his fists. "Then we leave." Juria hesitated. "Long journey. Danger." He stepped closer. "We've faced danger before." She watched him carefully, then smiled. "Yes." We go. They packed what? They could food pods, healing moss, light stones, and memory carvings. Juria strapped them onto her back, then bent down. Eli climbed onto her shoulders, scarf flowing behind him. The nest opened one last time. The walls singing softly as they left. It was a goodbye and a beginning. The air outside the nest was cold and sharp. Wind howled across the broken land like a crying beast. Ash still fell from the sky, coating the dead trees and rusted machines. But Eli felt something new as he looked out over the valley. Freedom and fear. He sat on Juria's shoulder, one arm gripping a woven strap for balance. She moved with power and grace, her long limbs stepping over craters and collapsed walls. The nest, the only home he had known on this world, was far behind. Them now gone, but something warmer traveled with them. A bond, invisible but strong. "Where are we going?" he asked over the wind. Juria didn't speak at first. She simply pointed ahead to the stars. She said softly, "We find Skydor." Eli knew what she meant. An old evac station deep in the mountains. If they reached it, there might be a ship, or at least a signal strong enough to reach orbit. It was their only hope, and it was far. The land was cruel. Twisted metal towers reached from the ground like broken fingers. Old bones of machines littered the roads. Some still hummed with power, others sparked with danger. Juria navigated carefully, her body shielding Eli from the worst of it. They passed through abandoned outposts and burnt villages. At night, they slept under dead trees or inside wrecked vehicles. Juria kept watch while Eli dreamed of blue skies and warm rain. But every morning they moved again, step by step, through a world that had forgotten kindness. On the 5th night, they found an old bunker. Half buried in ash, inside, they found a small power unit, barely alive. Eli's eyes lit up. "If I can fix this, we might get a signal." Juria set him down and watched silently. He opened the panel with trembling fingers. It was old tech, but familiar, similar to what he trained on before the war. He rewired connections, rerouted power, and sparked the system back to life. The console glowed faintly, and a low beep echoed through the dark. "Come on." "Just work," Eli muttered. He tapped the console, trying to open a comlink. A weak signal blinked on screen. It wasn't strong enough, but it was real. Suddenly, movement outside. Juria raised her head, her eyes narrowing. She stepped in front of Eli and growled, low and deep. Shapes moved in the ash, fast and many. Not animals, not her kind, humans. Eli peeked out and saw a group of soldiers in scavenged armor, faces hidden under masks. One of them shouted, "Step away from the boy." Beast. Juria didn't move. Eli ran forward, waving his arms. "Wait. She's with me," he shouted. "She saved my life." The soldiers hesitated, their guns still raised. One of them stepped forward, visor flickering. You're human? Yeah, Eli said. Name's Eli Stone, Private, Earth Guard. The leader lowered his weapon slightly. We thought you were dead. I almost was, Eli replied. But she carried me out of the war. The others stared at Juria. Nervous and confused, they'd never seen a caregiver before. One soldier whispered, Why would it protect him? Eli stood beside her and said, Because she's more human than most of us. After a long silence, the leader nodded. All right, he said, you can come with us. Juria looked down at Eli. You're unsure. He smiled and nodded. It's okay. He said we made it. That night they sat around a small campfire with the squad. Juria sat apart. Her massive form hunched beneath the metal ceiling, but Eli brought her food, shared his blanket, and never left her side. The others watched. Slowly realizing this wasn't just a rescued soldier and an alien, this was something rare, something beautiful. Asterisk. The sky turned orange as the old evac station came into view. It stood at the edge of a shattered cliff, its towers broken, its landing pad covered in dust. But the signal beacon still blinked a weak pulse, reaching into the heavens. Juria stopped and stared at it, her golden eyes glowing in the sunset. We made it, Eli whispered. She nodded slowly, one hand resting on his back, behind them. The human squad marched carefully, scanning the area. Looks clear, said the captain. Let's move. But Eli's gut twisted. Something didn't feel right. It was too quiet, too easy. As they reached the control deck, the beacon flared red, and then movement. Drones, dozens of them, rose from the ground. Like insects, their eyes glowing red, wings sharp as razors, behind them. A new threat emerged for black-armored alien hunters. Stronger than the ones Juria had fought before. Leaders. Ambush. Someone shouted. Gunfire filled the air. Juria roared. Placing herself in front of Eli and the squad, bullets and lasers bounced off her thick hide. But the drones were smart, fast, and coordinated. Juria, get back. Eli yelled, but she didn't move. She grabbed a steel beam from the broken tower and swung it like a club. Drones shattered like glass, sparks flying everywhere. But then one of the hunters aimed directly at Eli. Juria saw it too late. The shot fired, but a huge hand blocked it. Juria took the full blast to her chest, stumbling back. No, Eli screamed. Running to her side, she fell to one knee, breathing hard, glowing blood pouring from the wound. You stay. Safe, she gasped. No, we fight together, Eli shouted, tears in his eyes. He picked up a fallen rifle and fired at the nearest drone, hitting it clean. The squad regrouped behind him. And for the first time, humans and one alien fought. Side by side, the battle turned. Juria rose again, roaring louder than any weapon. She charged into the hunters, swinging with fury and love. She was no longer just a mother. She was a storm. 2 hunters fell under her blows. A third tried to stab her, but Eli shot it in the head. Only one remained the largest. The leader, he moved fast. Blade in hand, striking Juria's side, she grabbed him, crushing his weapon and throwing him off the cliff. Silence followed, broken only by the sound of her breathing. Juria turned to Eli, her knees giving out. She collapsed to the ground. Big Mom, he shouted, dropping beside her. She smiled weakly. You live, she whispered. Good boy, Eli. Pressed a bandage to her wound. You're not dying? I won't let you. Her hand covered his. Huge and warm. You gave me family again, she said softly. Thank you. The beacon flickered once more, then turned green. A signal connected. Reinforcements were coming. Help was on the way. But for Eli, none of that mattered right now. He looked at Juria, his protector, his friend, his giant alien mother, and all he wanted was for her to stay. Don't go, he whispered. Tears falling, Juria closed her eyes slowly. Stay strong, she said, even when I sleep. And then she went still, not gone, just quiet. Breathing shallow but alive, Eli looked up at the stars above. The battle was over, but something greater had begun. A human. A 9-foot alien caregiver, and a bond that no war could ever break. The sky above was filled with light. Human ships descended slowly, shining like stars with wings. Eli stood near the edge of the cliff, watching them land. Juria lay behind him. wrapped in warm fibers and surrounded by glowing moss, her chest rose and fell, faint but steady. She was still breathing. Medics rushed toward Eli, asking questions, scanning his body, but he waved them off, pointing behind him. "Help her first," he said, voice firm. They hesitated, some had never seen an alien like her before. "Now," Eli barked, and they obeyed. Machines hummed, lights flashed, and gentle arms lifted Juria onto a medical platform. One of the doctors whispered, "She's stabilizing." Eli's knees gave out, and he sank to the ground, not from injury, but from relief. They took her aboard the lead cruiser. Eli followed, never letting her out of his sight. The ship lifted off gently, leaving the broken battlefield behind. And with it, the war days passed in recovery. Juria lay in a deep sleep, her body surrounded by human tech she didn't understand, but it worked. Her wounds began to heal. Her heart grew stronger each day. Eli stayed beside her, talking to her. Even when she didn't respond, he told her about his childhood, about the games he used to play with his brother, about how he once hated rain, but now missed it. He told her that when she wakes up, they'll find a place with trees and rivers, and maybe even sky singers, the birds she loved in his stories. One evening, as stars blinked beyond the ship's window, Juria's fingers twitched. Her eyes opened slowly, golden and gentle. Eli jumped up, grabbing her hand. "You're awake," he said, smiling so hard it hurt. She blinked, her voice weak. "You didn't leave, never," he replied. Doctors came in, amazed at her recovery. She watched them warily, but relaxed when she saw they meant no harm. Eli sat beside her for hours, feeding her, helping her move. She called him Strong Boy, and he called her Big Mom. It became their thing. Simple words with deep meaning. Later, a council of officers met with Eli. They offered him medals, promotions, interviews, but he had one request. "I want her to come with me," he said. Some protested, calling her a danger, a mystery. But Eli stood his ground. "She saved me, protected me, fought beside me. She's more human than most of us." A long silence followed. Then the highest officer stood and said, "She goes where you go." And so they left the fleet together. They were given a place on a green world far from war, not too big, not too loud, just peaceful. A small house, near a lake, with mountains in the distance. Juria built a garden with her own hands. Eli planted earth flowers between her alien roots. They watched them grow together. Every morning, she hummed to the plants, and they swayed to her song. Children from nearby villages came to visit. They called her Giant Lady, and climbed her like a tree. She laughed a deep, warm sound that made birds sing. Eli taught the kids to carve just like he once did, and sometimes Juria sat beside them, crafting figures with her massive hands. One evening, they sat by the water. Juria wore a shawl Eli made from earth fabric. Eli leaned against her arm, watching the sunset. She spoke softly. "This is home," Eli nodded. "No walls, no guns," he said. "Just you and me." She looked down at him. "You gave me peace, and you gave me family," he replied. The wind carried their laughter across the lake. The stars blinked awake. Above, and in that quiet moment, surrounded by life, Eli finally understood. Home wasn't a city or a planet. It wasn't walls or weapons. Home was her.